Hey, hello YouTube, man. How you guys doing today? It is me again, favorite Texas trucker, third video, coming from Wildcat, Iowa, to Iowa 80. Just did another one a few minutes ago. This time what I want to talk to y'all about is buying a truck, okay, or getting into a truck so that you can become a owner-operator, all right, and what that all, let me get a little bit of light back here, it's a little bit dark, and what all of that may entail. There are 3 essential ways to get into your own truck. All right, the first is through a lease purchase, and the second is through a straight lease, and the third is by buying your own truck. Now, there's many ways that you can go about doing all of those. All right, the first, let's talk about lease purchase. There's a couple different lease purchase options, and I'm not going to speak a whole lot about lease purchase. What I will say is that I'm opposed to lease purchase options, and I don't support them at all. With that being said, all right, I do know several people, personally, people that I have met, talked to, spent time with, and people that I've interacted with a lot on Facebook who have successfully completed a lease purchase program and have walked away with their truck title in hand. Okay, so by no means am I saying it can't be done, and I know personally several people, and some of these are the same people, who have gotten into a lease purchase program and they've made good money. Okay, so I'm not saying that you can't make money in a lease purchase program, but nevertheless, I am against the lease purchase, and there's a couple of reasons for it. All right, you can argue them out if you want, but you will always pay more for a vehicle when you do a lease purchase than you will if you buy the vehicle outright, and that's just the bottom line, and it's the way it is. And you'll always pay more. And if you sit down and you take the average price, because there is no Kelley Blue Book for big trucks, okay, that doesn't exist. The Kelley Blue Book that we use to determine the value of a car, a personal car, when we buy a car, if you use that, I use it. But the Kelley Blue Book where you determine the value of a vehicle when you buy the vehicle doesn't exist for big trucks, okay? It's not an option. And so there's no real way for us to tell if we're getting screwed when we buy a truck. All right. So what you do is what you have to do is you kind of got to do a little bit of homework, and you've got to look around at the average sale price of the similar vehicles that you're buying. So let's say, for instance, that you want to go out and you want to buy a 2014 Kenworth T680. Okay. So what you might do is you might want to go to 4, 5, 6 different dealerships that have a 2014 T680 and see what they're selling it for. What you'll find is that most of those dealerships will be selling the similar vehicle for a similar price, and I don't know these prices right off the top of my head, and so I'm just going to throw numbers out there. I'm kind of pulling them out of my ass, and I'm going to throw numbers out there. So let's say, for instance, that what you find is that the average price for a 2014 T680 is, we'll say, $55,000. Okay, you can buy that truck for $55,000, which it's probably going to be a little bit more than that. But let's just say that it's $55,000. Okay, if you were to go out and you were to do a lease purchase on that same vehicle, by the time your lease purchase is over with, you will have paid probably somewhere $110,000, $125,000 for that same truck, or if not more. Okay, it's just because that's how lease purchases work. And most lease purchases, and not all of them, but most lease purchases are a walk-away lease. For instance, Quality Trucks has a lease purchase program where you get in there for $0 down, you get into a truck, you pay the truck off over a particular amount of time, you have $1 buyout at the end of it. All right, but it's a walk-away lease. So, it doesn't hurt your credit. You take the truck, you turn it back in, You walk off, no harm done, everybody's happy. And that's one of the advantages, one of the things that people like about doing a lease purchase, is because if things go bad, you have nothing invested in the truck other than what your monthly payments have been. So essentially you're just renting a vehicle, or what a lot of owner-operators are fond of saying, myself included, is you're renting a job. Okay? You don't own the vehicle, you have nothing really invested in the vehicle, and all you're doing is renting a job. You're renting a tool in order to do a job. Okay? And so you never have any ownership of it. And most people that get into a lease purchase, the cost, the monthly or weekly cost associated with the operation of the vehicle is high enough that their profit level is always fairly low. Okay. Again, these are all generalities. Okay. There's companies that have lease purchase programs as part of the company, and these drivers come out and they make pretty good money doing it. Okay. Second is a straight lease. All right. Well, let me finish one thing. Not all of these lease purchases have a dollar buyout. Matter of fact, most of them don't. Most of these lease purchases, you're going to pay an X amount of money, whatever the case may be, over a period of a set lease. Usually somewhere between 3 and 5 years. Okay, so you pay this out over a lease over the period of 3 and 5 years, and at the end of that lease, you have a balloon payment. I want to say that Lone Mountain has the balloon payments. Again, don't quote me on this because it's been a while since I've looked into it, and I could be wrong about the particular one, but I believe Lone Mountain has a buyout. And if it's Lone Mountain that I'm thinking of, and I'm pretty sure it is, but again, I could be wrong, then what you're doing is you're paying out your lease payment over a period of 3 to 5 years, depending on whether you buy a used truck or a brand new truck. And then at the end of the lease payment, you have like a $25,000 to $35,000 buyout. Okay. Well, if you haven't saved up $25,000 to $35,000 in the time that you've been leasing that truck, then you have to finance the buyout, or you have to turn the truck back in and get into another lease. Okay. Here's my issue with that. Okay, is that the amount of money that you've paid over the 3 to 5 years in weekly payments, or bi-weekly or monthly, however you have it set up with the lease company, is enough money to completely pay for that truck. Okay, so by the time you finished your lease agreement, you've already paid the total value of the truck. But now on top of that, you have to pay a buyout, $25,000, $35,000, which is essentially the current value of that truck. Okay, and I've seen one of the lease options that I looked into was $45,000 buyout. Of course, it was a brand new truck. So over the period of 5 years, you pay out the total amount of truck that the truck's worth, and it was a brand new truck. So let's, again, numbers pulling out of my ass because it's been a long time since I actually looked at the numbers, and I don't remember what the exact numbers were. But let's say it's $145,000. So you're essentially dividing $145,000 plus whatever the interest rate that you're getting on it is into 5 years, and then you're dividing those each year's payment into 52 weeks, and then that comes out to what it is that you're paying per year annually. Right? And by the time you're done paying these payments out, you've already paid for the entire value of the truck, but now you have to buy the truck. You see what I'm saying? So you paid the whole truck, and then you have a $45,000 buyout. The $45,000 is the value of the truck after you've driven it for 5 years, and so now you've got to pay $45,000 more dollars for the truck. So you're buying a truck so that you can buy a truck, and it's the same goddamn truck. And I just it doesn't make sense to me. I don't like the option. The positive side of it is that with a lease purchase, generally you can get into the truck for nothing, paying zero down, especially if it's company lease. Dangers. Oops, almost dropped my phone. Sorry. Dangers of a company lease are that you are leasing a vehicle by the same company that pays your paycheck. Okay, and so these companies are known, and I'm not pointing names at any company. I'm not even going to name a company, But these companies that do these are known for starving you out. Okay, there's a couple of these companies that have their own load boards. Okay, one of the companies, and I've looked at so many of them that I can't remember all of them, but I know one of them is a flatbed company that does lease purchase, and they have their own load boards. Another flatbed company has dispatchers, and they give you an option of 2 to 3 different loads that you can pick up every time. Another one of them, another one of these companies that has their own load board is in the dry van, tanker, flatbed. I don't know if they do reefer or not, but they cover pretty much everything. Another one that does lease purchase, and I don't know if these guys have a load board or not, but they have reefers, dry van, tankers, flatbeds. So, there's a lot of options there, but you are leasing the truck from the company that's signing your paycheck, and that, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, it's worth about the weight that of the paper I write it on, is never a good idea. And that's just my take on it. I stand on that. I don't like it. Does that mean you can't succeed doing it? No, it doesn't. You can, and especially if you're disciplined. It's not an option I would take. Okay, it just isn't. I'm going to throw one more thing out there for you. Okay. And I want to preface this by saying that just because something has been done for a long period of time does not mean that it's legal to do it. Okay? Now, I say that because the practice that these big companies follow, and I want you to follow me here. If you don't believe me, look it up. There is the practice that these big companies are following by putting you out there as a driver for their company and leasing you one of their trucks for purchase, okay, or straight lease, doesn't matter if it's straight lease or a purpose, it doesn't matter, or a purchase, it doesn't matter. But the practice of them bringing you on board and leasing or doing a lease purchase on a truck and paying you on a 1099 is illegal. They cannot legally do it. Now every single one of these companies do it. So people will say, well, you're full of shit, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm not full of shit, and I do know what I'm talking about. Unless you can take that truck, let's just say that you're going to go to Snyder. And I'm just throwing Snyder out there so we can identify a location. I'm not saying anything bad about Snyder. But let's say that you go to Snyder. And again, I don't know anything about how Snyder's lease program works, so I'm not trying to bash Snyder. Well, let's say that you go to Snyder and you get into a lease purchase program with Snyder. All right, and let's just say that you have a 2-year contract on your lease purchase, and after 2 years you're supposed to own that vehicle. Maybe you got to buy out, maybe you don't. I don't know. I don't know how Snyder works. All right, but in a year's time, you've been there for a year and you want to leave. You don't like Snyder. That's not working for you. You want to leave. You want to go somewhere else. If you cannot take that truck with you and go somewhere else without having to refinance it, what I mean is that if you decide that you want to quit from Snyder, if you cannot take that truck from Snyder, and if you cannot take it to another company, then you are an employee. You are not an independent contractor. You cannot be paid on a 1099. The IRS has a set of questions, and it's easy to look it up. You can look up what questions determine if I'm a 1099 independent contractor or an employee. It's a simple thing to look up. It's not hard to find. Okay, you can look up what defines a 1099 independent contractor or what defines an employee, and what you will find is that the conditions that you have to work under this lease purchase, and the fact that that company can cancel your contract and take that truck away from you at any time, And the fact that you cannot leave that company and go to work somewhere else independently, all right, those facts, just those facts right there, make you an employee and not a 1099 contract worker. And so as a 1099 contract worker, you have to pay your own taxes, you have to pay your own Medicare, you have to pay your own Medicaid, and those are costs that are supposed to be absorbed by the company that you are leasing your truck through. Now, when you become a true owner-operator, and man, I know this is going to get some people's feathers ruffled, because I'm not trying to down lease purchase operators. What I'm saying is that you don't own that truck, and you're not going to own that truck until you pay it completely off. And until you pay it completely off, they can cancel your contract at any time, so you're not an owner-operator. Now, you may operate as an owner-operator, and everything that you may do may be identical to how an owner-operator works. And you may eventually own that truck, and all that is great. But the fact that they can yank the contract out from underneath your feet at any time is the differentiation between being an owner-operator and being a lease purchase operator. And as a lease purchase operator, because they can yank that contract out from underneath you at any time, and you are working for the company that is leasing your vehicle, you are an employee. Now, in California, they just had 2 class action lawsuits concerning this exact same thing. And they won, the class action plaintiffs won the lawsuit, and the companies that had them in these situations were forced to pay out like $77 million, right, in lost wages, because the 1099 contract workers are not responsible for paying their Medicaid, their Medicare, and the employer side of the federal income tax, unless they meet all of the qualifications for being considered a 1099 independent contractor, which they don't. So what you're doing is, you're not doing anything illegal, but the company that you're working for is doing something illegal, and sooner or later they're all going to get busted for it. You can look up the articles on the 1099 lawsuits in California, and on what is it, CDL Trucking, and you can look them up with OIDA. You can look it up with NASTC. There were several articles on it earlier in the year. It was all over the news. It's not hard to locate it. It's not hard to find it. So for those reasons, for a lot of those reasons, because the lease purchase operators, lease operators are getting screwed all the way around the board. They're being forced to operate exactly as an owner-operator operates in all aspects, but they are not gaining the benefit of being an employee when they are essentially paying to drive a company truck. And again, that company truck may own it. I have several friends of mine, and in this case I am going to name the company, but I have several friends of mine that work for Prime, who have paid their truck off through a lease purchase program with Prime and have continued to stay on board with Prime and work for them, because Prime's a pretty decent company. But at this point, they are now fully owner-operators, and at this point, they are legally paid on a 1099. But up to the point that they got the title to their truck in hand, they were lease operators or lease purchase operators, and they were not legally being paid on a 1099. They were illegally being paid on a 1099. All right, and it doesn't mean it can't work. It can work, and maybe that's the choice that you want to take, and all that's fine. Okay. So I've spent a little bit more time on the lease options than I really wanted to spend, because this was really about buying a truck. Okay, but this is important, and I do want to cover it. And again, there may be some people that completely disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine. You can disagree. I made the choice to buy my truck outright, and I can lose my truck too. If I don't make the payments on my truck, they're going to come and they're going to repossess my truck. But I didn't buy my truck through the company that I work for. It's just, to me, it's not a good idea. So, with that said, let me just real fast touch on a lease. Okay, you also have what's called a straight lease program. The straight lease program is essentially this: there is no buyout option, and you don't own the truck at the end of the lease. Okay, at the end of the lease, what you're doing is you're renting a truck. It's essentially the same thing as going down to Chevrolet and leasing a car. I'm not real clear on all of the rules associated with it, so I'm not really going to speak too much on them. But I do know that some of the leases have mileage limits. Okay, there's a certain amount of miles that you can drive per year. Anything that you drive over those miles at the end of the lease, if you're over the miles, then you have to pay a certain amount of cent per mile for those miles that you're over. And there's no option of buying the truck at the end of the lease. The advantage to that is a lot of times the payments are lower. They're not as high as a lease purchase because there's not a buyout option. You're not buying it. They're gonna lease the truck to you for 3 to 5 years. You're gonna turn the truck in at the end of that 3 to 5 years period of time, get another truck. Companies like Millis Transfer doesn't own any of their trucks. They lease all their trucks. All their trucks are leased. And so they do it after about 4 years, 3 to 4 years, I think it is. When there's, it's more when the truck reaches a certain amount of mileage than it is an actual number of years. But they trade their trucks in when they hit right around 450,000 miles, something like that. And I think it's 4 years. I don't know. Somewhere around 4 years. But they're not ever planning on owning those trucks. They lease them, they turn them back in, they get new trucks. They recycle their trucks all the time. And that's what happens with a lease. And I'm not going to have enough time to talk about buying a truck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this video here in a couple of minutes, and I'm going to do another video on actually buying the truck, because there's a lot of shit to look for. So first, let me finish this by saying that I'm not bashing lease purchase or lease options. There's some people that the option works for. There's some people that's what their business model is built around, and that's perfectly fine. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that at all. I'm not even bashing people that go to work for these companies, these big companies like Prime, Schneider, Swift. Who else does lease purchases? I can't. Fucking ATS, Trucks for You. Shit. There's a few more. CRST Malone. God damn, man. There's more of them. JCT. There's more of them, and all their lease purchase options are a little bit different. And so I'm not. If you go there, I'm not bashing it. I'm not telling you not to go there. I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm just telling you that, and I'm not telling you can't make money at it, because I damn sure know you can. You get to the right company, you go with the right company, and you pay attention to what you're signing up for. You pay attention to your contract, and goddamn sure you can make some fucking money, and you can pay your truck off. And if it's not the kind of truck you want, you can pay it off, go down and trade the son of a bitch off, and get the truck you want. Without a doubt, you can do it. So I'm not bashing you. I'm not saying you not to do it. I'm just telling you why I don't like the lease purchase. I don't like the lease option. That's why I don't like it. It's not. I've looked into it. I spent 6 months researching the lease purchase, talking to lease purchase operators, talking to companies that do lease purchase, going through and researching the legal ramifications of the lease purchase. Looking over contracts from companies that do lease purchase, and so on and so on and so on, and I decided that it was something that I opposed and I didn't want to have anything to do with. So I'm not, but again, I'm not bashing it. It is without a doubt a way for people to get into the industry and get in their truck. And to be honest with you, I almost fucking went with it. I almost went with a lease purchase. I was going to go to CRST Malone and do a lease purchase through CRST Malone, and I decided against it. So we're going to go ahead and end that right there. I just want to clear that I'm not bashing anybody that does lease purchase or anybody that promotes lease purchase. If you promote lease purchase, or if you do lease purchase, or if you're interested in lease purchase, then not only am I not bashing it, but I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm just telling you that when you go into it, there's certain things that you need to know and you need to understand. If you're willing to pay, if you're willing to get a truck that has a $54,000 value and pay $115,000 for it, that's cool. I've done it, not that way. I mean, I haven't done it with a truck, but I've done it with other things. If I want something, the value of something is essentially what you're willing to pay for it. So if you're happy with that, I'm happy with it. If it works for you, it works for me. You do what you need to do. but don't do anything uninformed. Okay. Anyway, that's all I got to say. We're at 25 minutes. Again, long ass videos. I appreciate y'all watching. I got a shitload to say, man. So these videos are going to keep flooding in here. They're going to keep coming in, and yeah, I know some of y'all have been wanting that. So I don't know how fast I'm going to be able to get them in there because my data plan takes a hit. But I am going to try to buy some data somewhere where it works and try to get them uploaded. So y'all take care. Peace out. Next video, part 2. Okay. This is part 1 of buying your own truck. We're going to talk a little bit about lease and lease purchases this one, and about what to look for when buying a truck in the next one. Y'all take care and peace out. We'll do the next one here in about 5 minutes.